Welcome, my name is Ashley and today I'm going to be showing you how to take your hoop from fully stitched to finished with the back on so that it can be hung up like an ornament. The first thing you want to do when we're doing this is to make sure that your fabric and your embroidery are centered and on the front of your hoop. You're also going to want to make sure that you've erased the lines, which I'm realizing I haven't. I will do that later. If you got a kit from me and use the Frixion Pilot Pen, the best way to erase it is with your hairdryer, or you can use an iron if you really want. Just don't smush the fabric too much. Either way, make sure that your image is centered in your hoop and you like where it sits. I am pleased with where this one is, so I'm not going to mess with that. We're just going to test and make sure that our hoop is all the way tight so that nothing's going to be moving in this process. And then we're going to flip her over. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to trim this excess, because right now if I try and pull this back, you see I've got all this extra fabric here. I'm going to use my pinking scissors to do that, which means I've got cool zigzag scissors. You can use any pair of sharp scissors you have. They will be just fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut mostly just the corners off, so that we have a more reasonable amount of fabric to be working with on the back. So I've got about an inch and a quarter maybe of fabric here from the hoop around. All right, there you go. We now have a circle of fabric instead of a square. Now we're going to be tying this fabric back. So we're going to cinch it all in so it sits back here like this. So we need at least enough floss to go around this circle. So I like to test and make sure that my floss is long enough by setting it here at the top, making a circle around, and you can see I've got plenty extra. So we're going to thread our needle real quick. I'm using 3 strands of floss, and this is this is actually 2 strands of floss. 2 strands, 3 strands, 6 strands. I've done it with all the number of strands. It doesn't actually matter how many strands you use for this part. Just use the appropriate needle for how many strands you have. Less strands, smaller needle. More strands, bigger needle. I'm going to tie a knot, except not there at the end. I'm going to tie my knot 2-ish inches from the end of my floss, and this is going to give us something to hold on to when we go to tie our thread together at the end. So I'm going to flip this over, and I'm just going to make a running stitch, which means I'm going to go in the fabric, out of the fabric, in the fabric, out of the fabric, all the way around the entire edge of this fabric. I'm about 1/4 inch away from the edge of the fabric. Definitely want to make sure that you're in far enough from the edge of the fabric to make sure that these stitches will not pull out. Okay, I have made it all the way around my fabric, and you can see that it's pulled it in as I went. So now I'm just going to tie a knot using these 2 ends that I've got here. I like to wrap it around a couple times because the floss tends to get a little bit slippery. And I'm just going to pull it good and tight. And then I sometimes try and hold it with my other finger. Sometimes I don't worry about it. All of the above. Again, I like to go through a couple times. If I have let it slacken, I'll tighten this up real quick and then pull this down tight, and that knot is going to hold. I'm going to throw one more on top just in case, and then I'm going to trim this floss, so it's not in my way. Now we're going to take our circle of felt and we're going to hook it to the back of our hoop so that you can't see any of this when it's hanging on a Christmas tree. So we're going to need to get some floss ready. I'm going to use a 3782. So it's a nice medium brown color, kind of like our felt here. But you can use any color of floss that you have enough of to use to do this. Now I am getting 3 strands ready. You could do this with 2 if you wanted. 3 just makes it a little easier for me to handle. Oh my goodness, I got a knot. There it is. 3 is just my preference. That's what we're trying to say here. And I'm going to tie a knot, this time pretty much exactly at the end. And now we're going to make a blanket stitch around the edge. So the very first thing we need to do is we need to get our needle through the fabric and right here coming up at the edge. All right. Now you could feed your needle all the way under if you wanted to. Or you can just take a bite of it like I showed you a second ago with the needle. So we'll pull this all the way up and then we're going to bring our felt in, line it up, and now I'm going to go down through the felt and back up at basically the same location. I'll pull that until it is straight and snug. Now, blanket stitch has a horizontal part and then the vertical part. So to get the horizontal part to stay, just to be double sure, I'm going to slide my needle under that stitch I just made. So now when I pull this to the side, it's pulling through that stitch. And then I'm going to go down through the felt, catch the fabric, come out close to there, make sure that my thread goes behind the needle, and pull straight up. And then we repeat. Down through the felt into the fabric, out right next to the hoop, pull either through the loop or think about getting that string behind. And I'm just going to keep doing this, trying to keep even widths, even lengths of stitches all the way around my hoop. All right, I've made it a little ways around and I can see that my felt is a little bit bigger than my hoop. Each hoop is a little bit different in size. So if your felt feels a little bit big, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna be more prepared and we're gonna grab the right scissors, first of all. Hold that thought. And I am just gonna trim a little bit along this edge till about here or so. The top doesn't look quite as large. If you don't have scissors that can cut felt, or if you're not comfortable cutting your felt, if it happens to be a little too large, that is okay. You can just continue stitching and kind of smush the felt into place. Felt is awesome. It's a little bit stretchy and it's got some give, so it will adapt to what you need it to do. That feels better for me. So I'm going to continue on my merry little way. So when I am stitching down into the felt and the fabric, one thing that I'm feeling for with my needle is I'm pushing down all the way, and then I can feel my needle kind of scrape up the inside of the hoop. So I know I've made it through both fabric and felt because I can hear my needle hitting that hoop as I come back up and out. All right, I have a decent amount of thread left, and I might be able to make it all the way around, but I'm going to show you how to change strands in case you don't make it all the way around, or you don't want to flirt with danger and then try and change where you have very little access to what's going on. So I came out through my loop just like I normally would. Now I'm gonna go back under through that same loop. So you can see my needle went from the right to the left under that loop. And then before I pull it tight, I'm gonna slide back through this loop. That's gonna create a nice little knot there, right at the top. And then I'm gonna put my needle down into the fabric here underneath, even here in the middle, and pull it out so that the end is going to be hidden when I snip it off here in a second. Then I'm going to get my new strand of floss, thread that on, tie its knot. And now, kind of going to reverse the process. I'm going to go through the fabric so I can't see it, and I'm going to come up pretty much right where this vertical bar of my last blanket stitch come out here, and then I can start stitching again because my floss is coming from where that last stitch ended, and just pull up and through and keep going around. All right, that was my last stitch around, and now we're basically going to repeat the same knot process, but instead of knotting to this stitch, we're going to come back over here and knot to this vertical stitch from our first stitch. So I'm going to come up under that one time, and then I'm going to do it again this time so I can make a knot. This time I'm catching both the horizontal bar and the vertical bar. One is sufficient, but if you catch two, that's bonus points for you. And then I'll pull through here for my knot. And then I'm going to finish by sending my needle down into the fabric here, and then I'm going to push down with my thumb so that as I slide this out, I can see my needle come and grab it. Easier said than done today, apparently. Okay, I went too far. I need more to grab. I'm only going to go a little ways and then pull my thread down through, and as long as you pull this pretty snug and then snip close to the fabric, that end will disappear, and now you've got a finished back, so that as your ornament is on your tree and twists and turns, nobody is gonna know if you made mistakes or what the back looks like. It'll just look like a pretty finished ornament. Bonus thought. If you got the kit, you got a piece of twine that comes with it to hang your ornament on your tree. Now I like to knot both ends together. And then I'm going to take the loop and I'm going to go front to back underneath the screw gate. And then I'm going to take the knot, put it through the loop, and then pull this on up just how these look if I want. And then the bonus part of this is because now your loop on the front is facing square, it's not going to want to turn as much on the tree and want to hang sideways. It's going to hang a lot more straight on, which is what I want on my tree, and hopefully you want. There's an easy way to get your tie on. Same thing works with ribbon, or you could use an extra piece of floss, or you could use yarn. All sorts of things will work to tie onto your hoop so that it will hang and make a lovely Christmas ornament. I hope that helps. If you ever have any questions or any of this didn't make sense, feel free to leave a comment or contact me on my website or my email. And I hope you have a fabulous day.